Football legend Cam Newton visited Missouri practice yesterday with a Mizzou hoodie on and everything. But what if I told you the Tigers already had a Cam Newton of their own?
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso and the central scrutinizer of Missouri Tigers football and basketball. And as usual, a bunch of Big Ten fans online seem to be forgetting context. This time, I've noticed the circumstances surrounding a couple of Missouri-Illinois football games. Well, you know what? I'll get into the recent history of that later on the program. Plus, despite all of the consternation about rising ticket prices at Faurot Field, I got to be honest with all you. I think the athletic department absolutely nailed the pricing. I mean, they knocked it out of the park, in my humble opinion. We will get to some modern stuff and injury updates really quickly on the program here in just a little bit. I do want to start, though, by talking about Cam Newton. You know, the Missouri Tigers had a practice yesterday. Eli Drinkwitz has long talked about being part of the Auburn's 2010 national championship run, where Cam Newton, of course, was the Heisman Trophy winner, and Drinkwitz has gone on and on about what a great leader he was and all that good stuff. But I got to say, this is a great thing for Eli and the Missouri program, because Cam Newton truly is one of those few guys whose name really still carries a lot of weight with modern football players. And since he's showing up in Columbia with a Tiger hoodie on and everything, it shows that he's not just a name in Eli Drinkwitz contacts. So there's a real relationship there, and a really real relationship evidently with Cayden Lee, the former Ole Miss receiver, who's looking like he may lead the Tigers in receptions, I think, this year. That would probably be my guess. And by the way, a reminder, I just couldn't help but look back at Cam Newton's incredible 2010 season, where he had 30 passing touchdowns and 2,800 yards, but on top of that also rushed for another 1,400 yards and 20 touchdowns. I mean, to me, those are almost Ruthian-type numbers in that they make almost no sense when you look at them. You sort of double take anytime you go back and look at like Babe Ruth's 1927 or something like that online. But no, these are indeed numbers that happened in modern football, not in some far-flung black and white, radio, television era, that type of deal. I saw it with my own two eyes. And by the way, Newton, one of 8 men ever, this is some good trivia for you, one of 8 men ever to win a Heisman Trophy and an NFL MVP. He was also a national champion. Didn't quite get that Super Bowl. Had that one appearance, but lost the game to Denver, of course, for those of you who remember that season. But that's a heck of a list, by the way, the list of guys who have won a Heisman and an NFL MVP. Most recently, of course, we're talking about Lamar Jackson, Cam Newton, Barry Sanders. I had this list. Let me hem and haw and pull it up for you all here. Just 1 second. Give me 1 second. Okay, here we go. In order from most recent to the farthest back, you got Lamar Jackson, Cam Newton, Barry Sanders, Marcus Allen, Earl Campbell, O.J. Simpson, and the golden boy, Paul Hornung. And also, Frank Sinkwich. I got to be honest with you, I've never heard of Frank Sinkwich before. Now, there's a good bit of trivia that you can get somebody on one day. But those are just massive names in football history. And by the way, Marcus Allen has basically all 5 things that you could possibly get. He's the only guy who's ever won a Heisman, the NFL MVP, Super Bowl MVP, a national championship, and a Super Bowl, of course, by the way. So he's basically your Grand Slam champion. Going to be hard for anybody ever to match that particular feat. But the whole point here in setting this up for all of you is that I'm reminded of Brad Smith, because in 2003, Brad Smith rushed for more than 1,400 yards and 19 touchdowns. That's basically the numbers Newton put up in terms of rushing. By the way, he put up another 1,300 yards and 16 scores on the ground in 2005. He also threw for more than 2,300 yards twice. Cam Newton really only had one season as a starter, by the way, and playing that type of football is not easy on the body. It also just goes to show you how incredibly durable Brad Smith was throughout his Missouri career, because the amount of punishment that young man took and never missed a start in 4 years is truly beyond belief. And also, to help prove my point here, that really this is where I'm going with this, obviously, Brad Smith could have been Cam Newton under different circumstances. Don't forget that Brad Smith's the one who laid the foundation for this program. He's the one who brought it out of the doldrums after, Larry Smith kind of did it and then really fell off his last couple of years. And by the way, among NFL players in history with at least 100 rushing attempts, did you know that Brad Smith is the career yards per carry leader, just ahead of Tyreek Hill and Michael Vick? My point is, I think that Brad Smith is our version of Cam Newton. I just don't think the team was ready yet. The 2002 to 2005 Missouri Tigers, compare their amount of 4- and 5-star recruits on that roster, for example, to the one of 2010 Auburn. There's just no comparison. I really believe that in a different time, under different circumstances, I think Brad Smith could have been a Heisman Trophy winner and maybe even an NFL quarterback as well. And thanks for taking that trip down memory lane with me. What can I say? I love Brad Smith, and I just simply could not resist the opportunity to talk about my favorite Tiger in Mizzou history. But let's get back to the modern stuff. And right now, there's obviously all eyes still on Ahmad Hardy. He is still not back practicing yet for the Tigers. And Eli Drinkwitz said, Saturday is the day when we should get some type of update on Hardy. The rumors are it should be a positive update. How positive? Well, let's just find out on Saturday. Now, some people got a little bit nervous when Cayden Green got a Veterans Day off from practice the other day, and that's exactly what it was. Cayden Green was not practicing one day in the past few days or so, and Drinkwitz just explained, this guy's played a ton of football. We just want to, manage his load. His workload, essentially, is what Drinkwitz said. Makes a lot of sense to me. Now, Donta Simpson, on the other hand, the transfer from Miami, who I said was maybe one of kind of your fulcrum players. If he really broke out this season, that would be a big deal for Missouri. I said that a few months ago in the offseason. Well, right now he's still not a full go in practice, and reports were that Drinkwitz was kind of riding him a little bit while he was working out on the side. So the idea that he's going to be a big-time contributor on the defensive line, that seems like a bit of a long shot at this point. Now, some Missouri fans have been vocal in their displeasure about rising ticket prices. And just for example, a $210 priced ticket for a Hill general admission seat for the Texas game, that definitely raises some eyebrows. I'm stunned that anybody would actually pay that price for the most part. But here's the thing. There's a real balance to be had if you're in the Missouri athletic department, because, of course, you don't want to upset your season ticket holders, your fans in general, by raising prices on them, by changing their parking assignment, for example, especially their secondary parking assignment. But at the same time, you also realize at Missouri, you are going to be in the bottom half of the league in terms of revenue, presumably for the foreseeable future at this point. Unless something radically changes here at Missouri in college football, I think that's going to be the reality for the Tigers in the Southeastern Conference for as long as we can imagine. So the deal is you're going to have to get creative in some ways. So to me, I'm going to give the athletic department a lot of credit here. I think they've actually threaded that needle pretty perfectly. So I'm going to make that case coming up here in just a moment. And also, yes, a reminder on the Missouri-Illinois series. And also, I bet Larry Smith has got some opinions on training camp these days. But you know what? Before we get there, I'll tell you, Locked On Mizzou is brought to you by FanDuel. And baseball fans, if you think you know who's going deep today, FanDuel is giving you a free chance to call your shot with daily dingers. It's easy to play. Just make your free pick on who you think's going to hit a home run in their game today. If you're right, you'll receive a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. Best of all, you can make a free pick every day throughout the Major League season. Daily dingers, just a fun way to keep up not only with your team, but the entire slate throughout the league. Every game has obviously multiple people capable of hitting a home run. Well, now it's your chance to make your prediction before the first pitch. And you know what? I'm going to stick with Jordan Walker. He's due. And I think in Cincinnati, a good place to hit, obviously, especially to hit home runs. Hot day in Cincinnati. Feels like the ball should be flying out of the Great American Ballpark. So are you ready to play your game today? Join all the action at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to play daily dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of MLB. So if you're getting a little bit tired of modern college football, in particular for this discussion, the price of everything, especially the price of attending these football games, I completely sympathize. I really do. In some ways, I wish we were still back in the 1990s playing that style of college football, or even all the way back to 2019, that type of deal. But here's the thing. We have to live in reality. We can wish that things were different, or we can adjust and actually try to win. Because here's the thing. I've seen Missouri do this before. In the 1960s and the 1970s, especially the 60s, of course, but even the 70s, Missouri was one heck of a football program. Played and beat a ton of gigantic football programs during that time, had a lot of great moments and great players. The 1980s, though, not so much. Well, what happened in the 1980s? Cable television came along, and football, especially college football for this discussion, exploded in terms of popularity, eyeballs, money, everything else. And the Missouri administration at the time, to make a long story short, it seemed like they were just content to be like, well, we're not going to adjust. We're just going to, we're going to live, we're going to play football and act like it's still the 1970s, even though it's the 1980s now. Obviously, listen, Missouri cannot live in the 2000s anymore. They can't live in even 2019 anymore. Everything has changed after the pandemic season. We all know this, and yet a lot of us are still fighting against it. I understand that. I really do, but this is the reality of the situation. And you can't say that Missouri was wrong in its pricing, because to me, the proof is in the pudding. There are still single game tickets available for 5 of the 7 home games, but Florida, which is homecoming, and Texas, those are probably your 2 biggest draws. Well, those single game tickets are sold out. And most importantly, your reserve seat season tickets sold out. And I mean, just about a week ago or so, Missouri announced this, maybe in the last couple days or so, with just a couple weeks, 2.5 weeks or so to go before the season kicks off. So here's the thing. When it comes to pricing tickets, obviously you're going to price them different depending on if it's a suite, if it's the 50-yard line, if it's the end zone, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So here's the thing. What you don't want to do is massively overprice your tickets, so then you have a bunch of empty seats. Clearly, that's not what Missouri wants to do. But then there's the other side of the equation as well. You'll see oftentimes if a show, a concert is really popular, well, you'll see, hey, we sold it out in an hour, that type of deal, which makes for a great headline. It sounds really impressive. Wow, there's a lot of demand for our event. But the other side of that is some would argue that if you sold out that quickly, then you dramatically underpriced your tickets. So really what you want to do is, yeah, you do want to sell out, but do you want to sell out immediately? Because if you sold out immediately, you probably underpriced your goods. This is just simple supply and demand economics 101. And when it comes to actually sitting in the stadium, there are indeed a limited amount of seats, especially not just you look at the totality of it, 65,000, whatever the number is going to be this season. But there are limited seats, again, at the 50, in the suites, in the top of the end zone, whatever your preferred seat destination is. Well, you're not that unique either. So the point is, everybody can watch. There's no limit to the amount of people who can watch a football game on television, for example. So when those prices go up, I understand it. I understand actually the fury behind that more, because it almost is just a naked money grab at that point. Whereas, hey, there's reality, supply and demand. There's only there's a limited supply of seats in the arena. And of course, the best seats are more desired. So how do you find out who gets them? Well, frankly, you almost got to let the market figure it out, unless you just want some lottery system. Is that really what we want? I think actually the people who prioritize Missouri football the most, being able to open up their wallets, that's about as fair as we're going to get. And as I said yesterday, Missouri 25th in the preseason AP poll. And of course, a lot of people came out once again on social media saying, oh, every single year they just sneak Missouri in there in order to pad the SEC stats. I don't know where this idea came from, but it supports a lot of people's, preconceived bias. So they just hammer that like button like the ladies at the boats on the what's the 25-cent thing? Slot machines. My God, I'm tired today. Apologies, people. But for some context, by the way, Missouri 25th in the AP poll. They've spent 293 weeks in the AP poll as a ranked team. That's 12th all time out of 16 teams in the SEC, only ahead of South Carolina, Mississippi State, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt. For some context, Oklahoma and Alabama, more than 900 weeks in the AP poll. Missouri just under 300. Ohio State and Michigan, by the way, are 1 and 2 all time in that particular measure. Also, speaking of teams who don't spend a ton of time in the AP Top 25 historically, the Illinois Fighting Illini, and Missouri and Illinois are going to be fighting again here next season. It was supposed to be an 8-game series, now is down to 6. Well, who do we blame for this? Is it the Tigers' fault? Is it the Illini's fault? Let's get into that here in just a minute. But first, though, I got to tell you, this episode is brought to you by Game Time. There are more live events than ever worth seeing right now. We're talking sports, concerts, comedy, festivals. And, of course, with all these events, it can be hard to narrow it down, but the real hard part is actually getting your tickets with long wait times, confusing checkouts, surprise fees. Buying the tickets is a lot less satisfying than it should be. That's why so many fans are turning to Game Time. The app is built to make buying tickets simple, upfront pricing, seat views before you buy, and exclusive savings that help you get to the events you want without the usual hassle. And if you've seen all the reviews of Highmark Stadium in Buffalo, they've been absolutely all over the place. Seems like it depends on which seat you have is your experience. Well, this is where Game Time really shines, in my opinion. They give you an actual view of your seat. So you have an obstructed view, you'll know it before you show up with Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to every type of event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. All of the SEC Big Ten scheduling banter has been, a little bit exhausting this offseason, I would say, especially because so much of it is not really based in any facts whatsoever. It's just people throwing pure propaganda against the wall at times. And I will say this, when it comes to Missouri and Illinois, canceling what was going to be a game that was scheduled to be played in 2026. They canceled. It was going to be basically, hey, a 4-game series, then a few years off, then another 4-game series. They canceled, well, one from each of those 4-game trips there. So here's the deal. The Illinois AD, Josh Whitman, came out last summer and explicitly said that Illinois didn't want to play 11 Power 4 games in one season. Simply put, they had Duke coming up. They still have Duke on the schedule for 2026. That would have made the Tigers their 11th Power 4 game. And he literally said that that is not feasible for Illinois going forward. So there you go. Illinois told you exactly why they wanted to cancel this game. But here's the deal. I'm not gonna lie to you. I promise you Missouri wanted this game canceled for the exact same reason, because once the SEC decided to go to the 9-game conference schedule, adding an additional game, well, that means that Missouri was going to play 11 power games this season as well. At least, hey, again, until this Illinois series, one of the games was canceled. So it's also created a bit of a unique dynamic here. When it was 4-4, you thought, okay, maybe they'll just do 2 in Columbia, 2 in Champaign. Well, now that it's 3-3, we got odd numbers here, don't we? So it seems like in each one of these series now we'll go Missouri, we'll go Champaign, and then St. Louis, Chicago. I'm not really sure where this game's going to be. I'm not exactly looking forward to the prospect of another game in the Dome in St. Louis, personally. I just don't find that to be a field and a stadium befitting an SEC team at this point in 2026. Maybe they'll fix it up and change my mind, but at this point, you know, I'd rather find somewhere else to play, quite honestly. I'm not really sure that there's an obvious option here. Nashville, perhaps. Kansas City seems like it's almost too far away for Illinois. Chicago, maybe for Missouri as well. And also, well, the Bears are going to be building a new stadium, all that stuff. There's a lot to be worked out here, but it'll be interesting to see exactly where the neutral part of that series comes. And speaking of changes in modern football, I have to say I giggled a little bit to myself the other day, just imagining the late, great Larry Smith looking down from heaven and seeing the Tigers practicing indoors on an 82-degree day, for example, that type of thing. Because, well, back in the day, back in the 90s, I brought up 90s football earlier, Larry Smith would literally take the team to the Mexico Military Academy, and they would do 2-a-days in like 95-degree heat for like 2 or 3 weeks in August. If that sounds brutal, it's because it was. It absolutely was brutal. Now, don't get me wrong, football practice is never a walk in the park, but boy, the end of 2-a-days, what a fine change that probably is. Listen, it's one of those things. It's a real difficult balancing act. Of course, you know, you want to, the last thing you want to do is get all your players injured in August practice before the season even starts, or just have them be, you know, dinged up and exhausted even before the season starts. But also, you got to get them ready. You got to get them ready to play what is an extremely physical and demanding game. Well, how do you do that without playing football? Like I said, you got to find that balance, and I think Missouri has found that balance, at least with Cayden Green. That's their attempt anyway, giving him and others a Veterans Day off. And like I said before, I think even if Ahmad Hardy, after the kind of season workload-wise he had last year, even if he didn't have his injury concerns, I would be definitely worried about limiting his workload as much as possible in practice and even early in the season to some extent. And that'll do it for this edition of Locked On Mizzou. Maybe Marcus Allen will show up at practice tomorrow and give me even more to talk about. But regardless of what happens, I'll be here with you on Wednesday for yet another edition of Locked On Mizzou. We are getting there, folks. Just 16 days away from football. Hope you're as excited as I am. I'll see you all tomorrow.